So, Laura Checkoway is an Academy Award-nominated filmmaker and writer whose documentaries shine a light on deeply personal stories. Her short film, Edith and Eddie, was nominated for an Oscar. Her debut, Lucky, explored a young woman's fight for survival, and her feature, The Cave of Adullam, won top prizes at Tribeca. Her newest film, The Cat Man Eshete, follows an Ethiopian refugee in Brooklyn, weaving themes of displacement, belonging, and care. So we're very excited to be able to speak with her about the film. So please give her a round of applause. How you feeling today?
Good, I just got a little nervous. But thank you guys all so much for being here.
So let's start with maybe talking about what drew you to his story, and how did you meet him also, and how were you able to, I guess, earn his trust to be able to tell a story that's so personal?
Yeah, so this film takes place on the outskirts of Carroll Gardens, which is a neighborhood in Brooklyn where I have lived for a long time. And I was walking down the street one day, and well, actually, it goes. I'm like, how far back should I take this? But I'll try to summarize. I had seen Eshete from a distance. I had seen somebody who was shrouded in scarves and blankets and had a lot of cats and pigeons sitting at his feet. And I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, and I just was curious who this person was, and actually had wondered, are there some people that you just can't get close with? Was the initial thought that I had, and sort of physically as well as figuratively, I had wondered that. And then another day I was passing by, and we saw each other and our eyes met, and just instantly that question dissolved into the universe, and I went up and we started chatting, and we actually talked about our eyes and just how beautiful they both were, and we connected right away. And I, in that very first conversation, asked him, can I film you and your cats? Which is not something that I've ever done before with somebody that I've made a film with. It really just instinctively came out of me. And yeah, so I think we started filming that same week, and he's very open. He's somebody who feels really misunderstood, but also is so sociable, and is really such a teacher and philosopher. And as I've gotten to know Eshete through the years, I feel like it has been truly such a treasure to know him, and also that it became very apparent I shouldn't be the only one hearing these stories, that this is somebody that the whole world should know. And so yeah, it started there, and it took years to make the film, and to understand what the story was, and to understand the dynamic between him and Janine and some of the other neighbors. So we filmed a lot in the beginning, and then we would pause and edit, and then I'd go back and film more. And finally, I understood the story clearly enough to be able to craft it in a way that I think really clicks.
Well, it was amazingly done. Really glad you went up to him, you know, broke that ice and went against the initial reaction that you had and started that conversation. It resulted in a truly beautiful story. I remember seeing it on Al Jazeera, just kind of skimming through things on online, and I was like, Ethiopian refugee, of course that caught my interest. And I saw the documentary, and I was definitely in awe by that. So yeah.
Thank you, I'm so glad you saw it too.
Oh, definitely. So in the film, it touches on like a lot of trauma and things like that, but it also really does like this really great balance of like highlighting joy and like tenderness and humor and all those things really well, but also still focusing on like, yeah, there is a lot of trauma around this. So how did you as a director find that balance and doing that in storytelling?
That's really all Eshete, I would say. I feel like as a filmmaker, I know I have a lot of sensitivity and a lot of care, and I've made films with a lot of people that have been through trauma, which maybe is something that I gravitate towards, but also maybe we all have, right? And so, yeah, he embodies so much, and he's such a example of somebody that your heart breaks for, but also melts and overflows simultaneously. And so there's this combination of, he has such a brilliant sense of humor, which the film only slightly gives you a whiff of. Like, this guy is absolutely hilarious, and his wit is so sharp and so brutal and quite brilliant. And yeah, he has so much homesickness and longing for Ethiopia, and yet he's such a New Yorker, and in so many ways such a classic New York character and human being. And so it's been amazing since the film has been released that audience members have often expressed that same feeling that I have in getting to know him, of that mixed feelings, where your heart just sings at the same time that it's like aching, is something that audience members say that they felt too watching it. And I think it's just that intense combination of emotions and passion is just who he is and what he's emanating.
100%. Yeah, no, I definitely felt that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there were certain scenes that were in Ethiopia, right? That were shot in Ethiopia. So how did you, were you there? Did you shoot that? And also, how were those locations selected? Was it his selection, or did he guide you kind of through it, or kind of walk us through that?
That's a great question. And so Greg, who is a cinematographer who I've worked with for a long time, and he shot a lot of my films over the past several years, and shot a lot of this with me. He was scouting in Africa, including Ethiopia, for a fictionalized feature film. And one night we were out filming Eshete, and he said, "Oh, I'm actually going to Ethiopia on a scout soon." And it was like, again, it gives you mixed feelings, because here we are with this person who so longs for home and is so traumatized by having to flee, and here's this American guy who just gets to go for this scout, right? But also it felt very cosmic because he happened to be going to Gondar, and so I was able to connect with the producer of that film and ask if I could book an extra few days for him there. And he brought an old camera. We actually had to buy film stock for it, because the idea was to film in a way that would capture the memories that would feel true to that time. And I'm so glad that we made that choice. And Eshete talks so much about home and has such vivid memories, and he really lives in his dream life a lot. And so he would describe his dreams and his memories of home. And mostly what I described to Greg were just scenic, like a river and a mountain and things like that. And then we had a guide for him while he was there, who, as you saw, brought him into people's home. I mean, what he came back was like such a treasure trove, and way beyond what I expected, in that we just got these beautiful scenes. When I saw the footage of, for example, that little boy walking towards the camera, I was like, oh my gosh. And so yeah, it just matched so beautifully, and it was all filmed in Gondar, which is where Eshete was from, but the specific locations were just where he happened to go. And that part with Eshete, who has come to all of our screenings in New York City, I mean, and it just struck him so much that the way he's spoken about it since, it's like he almost feels like it is his memories and dreams in this really profound way.
That's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Okay, so if there's one thing you hope that people, especially Ethiopian audiences that are watching this, carry with them after watching this, what would that be?
Well, I would say for more general audiences, and this may sound a bit cliche, but like, we all have a story, and never to judge someone, right? and there may be a genius sitting there right on the street who you're passing by. But also, I wouldn't say this is a message, but this is through the experience of actually the response from Ethiopians to the film so far has been that all of that longing and love that Eshete has for his home and for Ethiopia, it is so apparent that that love has been coming back through everyone that has seen it. And it was, again, something I wasn't expecting or couldn't have quite imagined, but it is so beautiful about what it says about, even for people who have lost family or lost touch with family, just that, I hope I can say in this way, but that we are all family. And yeah, and it just felt like, oh my God, the depth of how his homesickness is not for nothing, it's real, and that so many people have just been giving so much love. It's really special.
Absolutely. I mean, like I saw it on Al Jazeera, and I was going through the comments, and there was so many Ethiopians from around the world, you know, that were commenting. And it was beautiful to see. It really just like showed community, and it was cool to see that the story was able to bring that. Last question. So, what do you imagine Eshete himself would want viewers to understand about his life and his journey? Or maybe you can quote from...
Oh my gosh, I should have brought my phone because I could quote for days. But for Eshete, it's really, when I say what is the message, or when he's asked about the message of the film, he says, save the animal kingdom and save all the animals. And for him, it's always about the cats. And so any compliments or flattery or anything that you do to salute him always goes back to, it's all about the cats. It's all, which, again, if I psychoanalyze it, I think the cats represent his family, and in the present, but also from the past. And yeah, just a message of love, is of like pure love, and the love that we feel often with animals because of the purity there. And so much of the human experience often divides us. And so unity and love and family.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Laura. This was great.
Thank you. And if I could just add that, as it was mentioned, the film has been widely released by Al Jazeera, and so you can actually tell your friends about it and watch it for free on YouTube, and we hope to keep spreading the gospel.
Thank you.
Can the audience ask questions?
Yes. Please, yeah. Who wanted to ask a question?
Right here.
We only have time for like 1 or 2 questions.
Well, my question is a quick one, and I'm just curious to find out, we talked about Eshete's life from his state of homelessness and where he was in life, but I'm just curious to find out from his onset in New York, what was he doing before, how long has he been in New York, and is this condition going to ever change?
Thank you for asking. He came to New York in the early 80s. He fled, I think his sophomore year. He was a student at Addis Ababa University. From a young boy, he was a very advanced student who was very hungry for knowledge and education. And his father, from when he was little, taught him to be like Albert Einstein. And they used to call him Socrates when he was a little boy in school. He's very philosophical. And so his family actually sent him away because Gondar didn't have the quality of education at the time. And so he's been a lifelong learner and hungry for education. He was always very advanced. He was a student at Addis Ababa University, but also a young revolutionary who, as you saw in the film, had to flee. And so it took him about a year on foot, as he tells it, starting with a donkey and then on foot to make it to the Sudan, weaving throughout the war, where he says in that time he witnessed things that he always says, nobody knows what I saw. And then he lived in the Sudan in a refugee camp for 5 years and came to New York in the early 80s. And he seemed to start to acclimate. He worked at the Statue of Liberty, and then he started working construction. And he enrolled in a college in New York City as well. And then he had an accident, which is mentioned in the film, a really severe accident that left him in the hospital for a year. And I think that was one of many turning points, right? He'd already walked through a war and lived in the Sahara Desert, and now was paralyzed for around a year until he was able to rehabilitate. And then he got a settlement which afforded him the apartment that he was living in. And yeah, so when that settlement ran out, he lived there for 20 years, and when that settlement ran out, he was evicted, and that's when he met the cats. But I see it as the cats lived across the street from that apartment, so I think the cats gave him a reason to stay in the community that he had lived in for such a long time. And so yeah, I think that it's been really beautiful with the release of the film and when he's attended screenings. There's also a podcast interview we did together that you guys can watch on YouTube, which is a really wonderful way to hear him share his story even further. And I may be very idealistic, but I have hopes of him having a new chapter. But I also don't want to impose my own values on him. And so it's, yeah, he's just, again, he's somebody that has so much to offer, and he's so wise, and this film does that, but I think there's more. And so I have been compiling, he's a prolific writer, and so I've been compiling his story through his own writing, and I hope to also help edit a book which would be authored by him, which could, again, maybe give him another way to share more about what he's been through. Sorry, that was very long.
From feed to feature, exploring how digital creators are breaking into film, TV, comedy, and more, and how they're leveraging social media to be able to build careers for them in entertainment. So we'll be having our moderator take over the conversation, who is Liya Hezkias, along with our panelists, Biniam Bizuneh, Yonas Berhe, Nwokeabia, and Leehana Menelik. All right, I will be welcoming Liya to take over the conversation on From Feed to Feature. A warm welcome to our moderator and to our panelists.
All right, and the rest of the panelists can go ahead and join me. Welcome to the stage, everybody. So we're super excited to have this conversation today from feed to feature. I think we're all seeing the blurring lines between social media and traditional media in today's digital atmosphere. And so we're super excited to kind of chat about how everybody has existed in social spaces, but also transcended that and kind of moved into more traditional media spaces. So my name is Leah Hezkias. I'm an influencer. I've also done hosting and interviewing, and I'm super excited to introduce the panelists today. So we have Leehana Menelik, who is an actress. We have Nwokeabia, who is a comedian, an actor, and a director. We have Biniam, Bizuneh, who's also a comedian and a writer. And we have Yonas, Lost Lyrics, Berhe, who is a digital storyteller. He's a comedian and also producer. So social media is often seen as a starting point rather than a destination. So I'm kind of curious where you guys, like the moment that you guys realized that what you were doing was transcending the digital space, or if you guys kind of started more traditional media when you realized that existing on social media might be beneficial to you. So we can start with Leehana.
Well, for me it was a little interesting because I started with acting first, but I like really quickly realized that you have to kind of get into social media for the industry. So I just pivoted, and like it's helped a lot with acting, I will say, get you noticed more, but it's two different industries for like it's very different. Like on-screen acting and doing content, it's very different. You like rely on yourself versus somebody completely telling you exactly what to do.
Yeah, sure. In comedy, it was really interesting because our industry had a very contentious relationship with social media. At first, it wasn't really something that comedians wanted to do, put their material out there. It was more saved for the live shows. When social media came about, it allowed us the opportunity to connect with our fans directly. And so that really changed the game. And being able to like sell out shows and not have to go through a middleman or some kind of agent or those kind of things. So it really did change the game for a lot of comedians, me specifically as well. And that's where I found it to be the most important.
I moved out here a while ago, like over 10 years ago, and I was doing stand-up, and I thought that if I was really good on stage, that I would get the opportunity to like audition for things and write for TV shows. Like I wanted to be like Don Glover or Zidane, sorry, but it just wasn't like, even though I'd go to a show and I'd do great and there'd be like agents and managers there, it didn't matter. And then I did this web series where I was doing this kind of like Nathan For You, Borat type shit, and I like treated it like a TV show, and I made like 10 episodes of it, and I put them out really specifically and made them kind of do well. And then, and only then, did I get a manager and lawyer who was able to start submitting for TV shows and eventually getting writing jobs and stuff. And it was only that they saw they could make money off me in several different ways, where they're like, okay, you do stand-up, but also you could write yourself. Also, that could make our other clients money. So it was like making yourself as into a creator over just talent, I think, was what that did for me. Yeah.
Well, backstory, when I moved to LA December 2018, I came from music. And, I didn't really have social media. To me, I was still thinking about, downloading the mixtape on the CDs and pass it to the right guy and your career is there. Around April 2019, when actually my friend, shout out to Bino, he's not here, but he was like, hey, your accent's funny. You should record a video just acting like when your dad lectures you. I was like, okay. I posted it and it started spinning. And then I was like, why is this spinning but not music? I used to, when people were like, ha, you're funny, I used to be like, no, I'm not, So at first I was like, oh, it's one of those videos that probably will just spin. And then I tried it again and it started to like pick up. But here's the thing, during that time I was working as a doorman in North Hollywood at a bar, but I really didn't know what the meaning of social media really was. Even though the followers were going up, I'm like, okay, but my life situation is still the same, you know? And then when I did like my first stand-up show in 2019, the end of that year, I was like, ah, wow, a lot of these people came because they've seen my videos and think that was funny, and I'm like, okay, there's a way out. But to really answer, like, even the question about how powerful social media is, nowadays it's a separate job. Being a content creator needs to be attached, or it needs to be attached to whatever you're doing, because it's this generation's marketing, right? Unfortunately and fortunately, so it's a good thing and a bad thing. So yeah.
Great answers for all of you guys, and it kind of leads into the next question. So I'm definitely curious how you guys kind of balance creating content on socials and also existing in those traditional spaces. And more specifically, I noticed Leehana and Yonas, you guys have done collab videos together, so maybe how you find the right partnerships. And then Biniam and Benny, I noticed that you guys repurpose a lot of footage from your live shows. And Benny, you kind of talked about like material from your shows. So I'm kind of curious about like IP and how you know what to gatekeep maybe for live shows only versus what you feel safe kind of posting on social media. So maybe if you guys want to start with that one.
Sure. I'll say for your first question of like how you balance it, at first when I like made stuff and then I was able to start getting jobs, I stopped doing social media. This is like 2014, 2015, and I was like, okay, I did it. This is what I was doing it for, was to get like a manager and stuff. And then so many years passed and I ended up getting to like make a pilot for Hulu that I wrote and started, and it took like so long. Like it took like the process like a year and a half, 2 years, and then it got passed on. And this is like 2020, end of 2022, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be in this position where I am having to depend on gatekeepers to say yes or no for everything. I still want to do that, but I also want to have my own direct connection to an audience. So I was like, I need to start uploading again, and so I started doing what you're saying, which is just like filming my stand-up shows and then putting up material, putting up old things I had made, and the way I stay on top of it and balance it is I have someone that I pay someone to help edit and to post, and I also help out, but it's the only way I can do the other stuff at the same time, because like you're saying, it's a whole ass thing to edit, and you could do that and that would be all your time, you know? So yeah.
I'll piggyback off of that. I haven't gotten someone to do it for me, so at this point in my career, I self-produce everything that I do, and what that looks like is, if I'm going to a stand-up show, I have a backpack with the camera that I bought and a tripod, and I'll get to the back of the room, set it up, I'll go perform, and I'll take the footage home, and I'll be sitting there a couple hours after the show, clipping up what I think is good, and then I'll put it on social media. And I just, I've kind of found a routine for that. And there is no balance in that, if I'm totally fair and honest with you. You know what I mean? It takes up a lot of mental energy, it takes up a lot of space, but eventually you want to get to the point where, you find a machine that can work for you and put it out there. And then to answer your question about what to put out and what not to put out, that's like an ever-going battle amongst comedians, right? That's something we're constantly thinking about. How much do I say for the live show? But when you're a comic, you can also just always write a new joke.
Yeah, I know some people who are just unless you're Chappelle, no one's gonna have seen your jokes.
Right.
So really, you can put it all out, and it's very rarely is someone gonna be like, "What the fuck? I saw that,"
Yeah.
So,
but I'm sure it's happened to you though, right?
It's happened, but a lot of times, if it's a good enough joke, just like people like a good song, it's like, "Oh, they do the one."
Yes, yeah. That's very true. That's very true.
I've heard the same jokes that he told.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I've heard jokes that he told online, and I'm like, oh, I'm waiting for it. All right,
yeah.
Up with it. It's like you said, it's like a song. If you love the song, you're gonna jam again. You're gonna laugh again.
But to that point, if you talk to a generation of comedians before us, they'll tell you never put any of your material on there. You understand what I mean?
So
We're-
until you get a Conan set.
Until you get a Conan
Conan
set.
doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly, yeah. Conan O'Brien's out. Jimmy Kimmel just got canceled, right? Like these kind of things are real. So yeah, it's it's a constantly never-ending conversation we're having with ourselves, to put it bluntly.
I was gonna say I'm not really a comedian like them. I can crack a joke here and there, haha, kiki. No, I think with acting, I mean, I guess Bini can kind of relate to that, but like it's really different. Like you're really on your own, and you can have all the talent in the world, but like no one's really gonna pay attention unless you make them. So I feel like with social media, it's just kind of like putting stuff out there, even if it's cringy or whatever, like just to get you noticed. And it does. Like you'd be very surprised, but like it wasn't until social media that like things started picking up for me as well. You know, I had a manager that wasn't really doing much for me, so I literally just like fired that manager, started doing everything myself, and things have been blowing up ever since. So like social media can really like help make or break your career, which sucks. But like you said, it's a good thing and a bad thing, because like you don't want to rely on social media to like have to portray yourself as an actor or entertainer, but it's like the people are the mark. Like that's who you're presenting yourself to, and if you're not a brand yourself, if you're not like something they can sell, it doesn't matter if you're talented. Like you're not getting in the industry. Like you're not getting an audition, you're not getting an opportunity, you're not getting signed. It's not until that you get noticed by someone else that everyone else is like, oh, now we want them too. So it's very like, you kind of have to get into it now. I guess balancing it, I would say like even me, I struggle even when I'm on set. Like I'll try to do TikToks in between sets or in between takes. I'll wait until like a video's coming out or a short film's coming out and then post right when it comes out, so that people are like, oh, I just saw your, you know, so like it helps push your like, I guess visibility to directors, castings, whatever, and they see it. Like you'd be very surprised that they actually see what you do on social media and they take note of that, and they might not like hire you right on the spot, but they'll keep you in mind for later, for other projects. They're like, oh, I remember you. That's how you kind of build your network. But yeah, social media is like a big part of the industry now. It's like you can't escape it.
Yeah, like regarding social media, it's like a gift and a curse, right? So I would say like Biniam said, the gatekeepers, get tired of the gatekeepers, and like social media is like your own way to distribute like what you want to create and push. But as well, like I've seen from the other side where it could be somebody starting new and he knows a specific somebody and they put that person in rooms, and next thing you know, it looks like they blew up like very quickly, actually. And I've seen that happen many times where it's like, okay, there's this person who has this many followers, but like the business side can't sell this many tickets, versus this person who has this many followers can sell this many tickets. And it's like weird, because sometimes like social media doesn't really tell the full story of everything. Because there might be like, for example, I remember when I was watching The Walking Dead, back in the day, I really loved the show, so I was like, who's the director? Like, how did he, I looked on social media, he has like, 1,500 followers, 2,000 followers. He's not really active, he's just relaxed about like, this guy's successful, you know? And that's why it was like weird for me, because I'm like, oh, do I need social media? Do I don't? Because maybe this person can put this person in this room who's connected to this person, and so on and so forth. But for the most part, when you're by yourself and trying to find a way to do one thing, like if it's stand-up and also be a content creator, like Biniam said, it's so much easier to try to find an editor, because I'm not gonna lie, like the way I used to post my old skits are a lot more different than now. Like the content is forever changing. So to me now, like in Houston, I'm like, where are the young editors, the 21, 22-year-olds? Their attention span is shot. So like they clip like 0.2 seconds in between things, and that can make a video stop it from going viral or not, you know? And like what Benny said, sometimes we shoot our own things and we just have to produce and just go about it. But yeah, balancing is really, really hard because sometimes, like, when I look at even social media, I'm like, oh, it's a gauge for success, but does it tell the full story too, you know? But in regards to collaborating with Leehana, it's actually funny. I met her so she was working with my friend, actually Biniam, on a music project, and I got fired from my ballet job. And they drove to pick me up, and I was already mad, and I'm like, who's this Habesha person sitting in my seat, the passenger seat? And then we got to know each other, but she was telling me she was doing acting and all that, and I was like, oh, that's something that I wanted to do. So 2019, I went to my first acting class with her, and it's funny because my content, my comedian, Habesha accent, stuff like that, I thought I was like, oh, I'm a natural actor or whatever. And I went to her class and I got humbled, and it was a very humbling time. But yeah, and then just over time, we figured a way to do like collab videos. But yeah.
I'll say one more thing, just off you saying that the guy from Walking Dead, he's like a director, he's not a social media guy. It all depends on what you want to do. So if you're like, I want to be a writer, I want to be a director, we're like me and Benny and you know, it's like we're trying to like do stand-up and sell tickets. So there's this idea of trying to get a mass audience and trying to get more people because every state you go to. But if you're trying to be a writer, it's not necessarily like you get the most people. It's like the right person sees it. That's all you need. So I think it's more about like making something that you like that gets across your voice, or if you're a director, and then putting that out, and then hoping, you know, that gets seen the right way. You put it out the right way, and you don't even have to think about like, oh, if I'm not viral, I'm not, because I can't tell you the number of people who make a short film and it gets like, you know, 2,000 views, but the right person saw it and they go like, hey, you should be a director's assistant on this thing. I liked your short, you know, and it's more about that than like, so don't be self-defeatist and thinking you have to be viral in order to like get opportunities.
Yeah, I think that's facts. I mean, you really never know who's watching the video. Like something could have 50 likes and it could be someone who you like totally look up to, who you really want to work with, who liked it, you know? Yeah. And there's some platforms where you might even miss who liked it on like TikTok or something like that. I've noticed that sometimes where I'm like, oh, this video kind of flopped, but then I'll like look at who liked it and I'm like, what? You know, so I totally agree that, you know, social media isn't always the gauge of success in the way that people might think. I also think it's a great idea to definitely get an editor. I think sometimes when it comes to creativity, people want to hold on and have full control. And so I like that, Benny, that you have a system where you edit things like right after. Because I think if you don't do that sometimes, you might end up just holding on to like a bunch of footage that you're hoarding. And then you, Leehana, how you also like post it intentionally when it comes to those release dates. I think that's really cool. And I noticed a lot of you guys have been bringing up like managers and gatekeepers, and I think that's something that a lot of people who want to be working in the industry think about. So I'm just kind of curious about what you guys feel like the role of managers are, because Leehana, you said yourself that you had one before, but you do things yourself and it's working better for you. I have also had one before. I do things myself now and it's working, but sometimes I do feel like, you know, having a good agent would be great to make those connections. So I'm just kind of curious about, you know, all of your experiences with the gatekeepers and the role that you feel like they play in kind of bridging the gap between social media and the traditional formats.
Well, for acting specifically, I would say like when you're first getting into the industry, you know, you don't really, wow, when I first came to California, I didn't know anyone. Like I came here, me and my brothers, I knew no one. So like, it was literally just like, you know what? I always wanted to be an actor. I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna make it happen, you know? But literally it was just, I put myself in the showcase. It was like from 2018, I think. It was like some Disney star was looking for a bunch of new up-and-coming actors, and somehow they got to my email and told me to show up to this like tryout for like an audition or something, and they're gonna do a showcase. I went. There's like maybe 200 people in the building auditioning, trying to get their, you know, time. And I didn't even have a headshot. I printed something off of CVS, you know, picture. I was like, oh, I hope this works. But they were like, you know what, we see a lot of potential. They gave me some scholarship. I went up, I did a showcase, and immediately, like 10 callbacks, chose which manager, which agent I wanted, and then I was like, oh wow, like this is it. I'm gonna take off from here. Had like 3 auditions, booked my first gig after the 3rd audition. I said, oh, Hollywood cannot see me. I was like, I'm going up, right? I was so excited. Yeah, no. My manager immediately shelved me after that. Like, I was not getting any auditions. I was not, like, there was roles that were like head to toe describing me. Like, to the point where I'm like, I wouldn't even need to act in this one. Like, why am I not getting an audition for this? And it was just like, oh, you know, my other client got this audition. I'm like, other client? Like, I'm your client. You know what I'm saying? I just started to pick up on things where it was like, why are you not helping me grow to like the potential that everyone else is telling me that I have? Or I know it's not the work ethic. I know it's not the talent. It was just more so like, if they feel like you're gonna outgrow them or you're gonna do better without them, sometimes they'll just keep you at this level just to keep you at that level. So it's very like, it took a lot for me to learn. Like, I'm a very loyal person, so signing with a manager, I never planned on leaving. But it took me like being in the industry to realize these people are not your friends. These people are people you work with. So you kind of just have to like know that, even though it's kind of hard. You know, you build connections, relationships, whatever, and just be like, you know what? I believe in myself. I started looking up how to submit myself. I made sure my reel was intact. I started like following a bunch of directors, casting people, just putting myself out there, and literally I think hasn't even been a year since I left my manager, not even a year, like maybe like 6 months, and since then I've done like over 30 projects, like literally like back to back to back to back to back, like literally I just finished filming a web series like a few days ago. It just aired on YouTube right now, already 1.2 million views, so it's doing really good. But yeah, it's been picking up, and sometimes it's like you have to know that not every agent and not every manager is working for you. Sometimes they can hold you back. So I think like that was a huge lesson for me. I have a commercial agent now. I'm debating about signing with the theatrical agent just because I'm doing so well on my own now. But I feel like everyone's experience is different. I'm sure they all have different experiences.
I feel like there's a common misconception around the idea of agents and managers in the sense that if you don't have one, you're not a professional. That's just not my personal philosophy. I've had a manager before, similar situation where they weren't doing what I wanted them to be doing. So I took a different approach, and someone that inspired me was like the late great Nipsey Hussle. Talked a lot about building it on your own, all money in, and creating it from the ground up. And I think the message for that I took was that you build it, and then you can go to these people with leverage, right? So once I build my own leverage, now I can come to this agreement and say, if you're not doing X, Y, and Z for me, I'm going to take my business elsewhere because my business is already built. So it's more of a bandwidth situation than it is an opportunity situation. I can create these opportunities for myself. We've been talking about how we've been getting rid of the gatekeepers for 5 minutes now, right? So that's like, the best thing you can do for yourself. So when it comes to that, managers and agents, man, I think, they're valuable, but for, we were just in Dallas 2 days ago. We did a show in Dallas. It was awesome. That was off a cold email. It genuinely was because I had done a show in a different part of Texas. My cousin was on the phone with me and he goes, yo, you ever been to Dallas? I said, no. And I got on my email, looked up a comedy club in Dallas, wrote up an email using ChatGPT, shout out Chat, and pitched them with all my numbers, tickets that I've sold previously, and they got me a one-nighter at Dallas Comedy Club. And that all happened because I decided to take initiative, right? Manager could have done that for me, but they would have taken 20%, and I like my 20%.
Yeah, I think now it's almost like you're gonna have to do it yourself no matter what, and then you are gonna have people who could help you. And so I said this before, where when I first came to LA, this is like 2012, 2013, I thought, kind of like you were talking about, like when you get representation, now it's happening. I didn't have them, I did that whole web series thing, got some management, And I was like, oh, I'm still driving for DoorDash. What the fuck? And I like realized it was like, oh, you still, all that's gonna do, like basically a manager, agent, they are connections and information. So they will tell you, hey, there's this comedy festival. Hey, here's a movie that's auditioning. Yo, I know this producer who's trying to meet young people, and they'll connect you to things. But you still gotta have the goods and walk through the door. And some of them won't even connect you to things because they don't even know people. You know, it just depends on who you are with. So I've gone through so many of them. I've fired so many people. I've like, been like, this guy kind of sucks. I'm gonna go with this guy, whatever. And now where I'm at, I just have an agency, and I was able to kind of like when you do something that they can then see that they can make money off of you from, you could move to a higher level. So since I've written for a lot of TV shows, like this is how it all happened. Like I had a manager, and then I booked a pilot in like 2018 for Fox. I booked this lead of a pilot where it was a show. This show was crazy. I was playing Ethiopian American, and I was the lead of the show. And then this woman, who was the girl from Two Broke Girls, Beth Bear, she was my like wife, and it was about us having this like culture clash. Like I got an Ethiopian family, she got a white family. But it was written by this Indian dude, and they cast like, they was so fucked up. Like they cast like people who didn't look like, at first it was gonna be a Nigerian, but then they cast me, but they kept the parents still looking Nigerian. And then like, Sky Jackson played my little sister, she was supposed to be Abisha. We all were like, there's no way this is going. I was calling my dad, having my speakerphone, telling these people how to say, and they couldn't do it. But the good thing about it is I got paid for one episode, and then I also, because I booked the pilot, now these people saw me as someone who could book a pilot, so I got better agents. But then I used those agents to get a writing job on a better show. And then when I got that writing job, I left them to get better agents. So and now I'm with like a really good agent. I'm with UTA, and they have me, because I had leverage like you're talking about, from like writing for a show that people had heard of, and I'd sold the pilot. They were like, we really want you. We're gonna give you agents in every category. So like, I have like agents that are for acting and TV and film acting and stand-up touring, and it's like a lot of people, I don't talk to most of them that often, but when I want to, I can. And it was almost like I used my leverage at the right time to have access to these people, and when I need them, I'll tap in and be like, yo, I want to meet with this person, or hey, I got this script for you. But what I need is very, like, I can function on my own. So it's almost like I got these people that if, you know, I want them, I can hit them. And what else was I gonna say? Yeah, it's all dependent on what you need. Some people, I don't have a manager. Some people want a manager to almost be like a therapist, where it's like, man, I just did this audition, and I don't know what's going on. They'll be like, you're the greatest, you're gonna make it. Stick in there, you know? And I'm like, I don't need that part. I'll just stick with the agents, give them 10%, and then it's cool. And you know, it's kind of like what you're saying about like booking things, where a lot of things, I'll hit my agents about whatever. Sometimes they don't respond, sometimes they do. But the stand-up guy will get me some dates, and then some of them are me just hitting them up myself. And it's always, you're always gonna have to be the one leading the ship. But if you think of them almost like dot connectors, where you go, hey, I got the goods, I want this script to go to this person. Can you connect the dot? They'll do that. But they're not gonna give you the bullet. You gotta have the bullet to shoot at the dot, you know, which is the script, your acting ability, your stand-up ability, whatever you have.
I was thinking about the 2018 pilot.
Yeah.
Honestly, Netflix, they always have that same African accent, where every African, east, south, north. But in regards to the agent / manager, honestly, I've only, well, backstory, I used to do music here and there back in the day, and I only had a manager for music. And truth be told, yeah, like Biniam said, you have to have the bullet. He could probably connect me to like this person or that label or this or that, but yeah, an agent or a manager. I mean, I haven't really had experience with an agent or management, but I do have a friend that's a manager, and I mean, I've seen him transform a lot of people that are well known in the sport industry and music industry lives because of who he's connected to, like you said. Like, I need you to connect to that person, but I think in this day and age, like for example, when I do stand-up shows, I'll hit up the owner of the venue, or you know, and I'll be like, yo, can I do my show here? And can I do that? I don't know, I mean, you know, at the higher levels of acting, and I question about it, like, would you need a manager where you reach like a certain level where so many things are overwhelming that you probably just need to focus on the art so you can not produce, or maybe like provide, I don't know. But my personal history, I've seen agents and managers change people's lives. I've seen it happen in front of my eyes, but also at the same time, I don't want to say, actually, you know what, as a joke, but when people, like, sometimes in my email, I act like I'm my own manager. So if anybody emails me, I'm Sarah. And they, like, take me way more serious. If they're DMing me, they're like, yo, can you show up here for this certain amount? I'm like, no, you gotta, like, you know, and then they're like, come on, whatever. But they're talking to Sarah. It's a different playing field, you know? So I'm gonna have to change my manager's name now.
Bro, you tell me Yonas Berhe assistant is you?
Yeah.
No, that's real though. I know a friend who got signed to CA by pretending to be his own manager. Be like, there's this dude, you gotta see it. Now that dude's in movies and shit. It works. But in terms of like, how do you get one or whatever, because that's the thing people often ask, it's like, if you're really good at whatever you're trying to do, like we were talking about before, like you put out a short film that's really good, you put up stand-up for a while that's really good, people are just gonna talk about you, or your stuff will get sent around. If you just focus on the art, it leads to whatever, you know?
Yeah, I feel like kind of the big lesson here is to really keep focusing on your craft and keep honing in on that, because at the end of the day, you kind of have to already have something going if you want people to join you. And even if you have a manager, if you have an agent, you still have to be advocating for yourself. And Biniam, I really like what you said about the dot connector, because I think that can be really helpful. But at the end of the day, yes, with social media, we really can DM anyone, email anyone, and pretend to be, you know, a manager with a different name. Because I do feel like people take you more seriously when someone else is representing you. Because it's like, imagine like someone else gassing you up, like, this person is so cool, versus like, if you're like gassing yourself up, like, hey, like, you know. So I love all of that. And so my question for you guys now is, how can creators kind of prepare themselves before the opportunity comes? So Biniam, you were also talking about how you spent a lot of time writing a pilot and then it didn't get picked up. And I know that Yonas and Leehana, you guys were talking about doing acting classes and stuff like that. So how do you guys make sure that you're ready when the opportunity comes? And then also kind of going off of that, how do you know when to say yes and when to say no to opportunities that might be coming because of your social media presence?
I would say, well, for me, like, my morals always come first, so I definitely would say that, like, anything that I'm not okay with doing, I would immediately shut it down. But I know some people, you know, they like ask a bunch of people, like, what do you think? You know, you usually have like a group of people that you kind of trust to like go and ask for their opinions. I don't know how you guys do it, but that's how I do it. I don't know. But typically, I feel like most of the time it'll tell you on like for acting, there's like a breakdown basically. It's like I'll show you a bunch of lists of the stuff that they'll have out right now, like, oh, what they're looking for, what kind of actors, whatever. You can typically like look through that, and if you're submitting yourself, if you don't have any representation, typically you would just look at the castings that they have open, and you would just kind of like go based off of that. But for me, with social media, I wouldn't say I've gotten like acting jobs per se. I would say more so like we've done content that's done really well, I'll say that. But most of the stuff that I get from acting is from auditioning or like other jobs that I've done, and the team remembers me and they're like, oh, we want you for this shoot as well. So I guess I don't know, I guess that's kind of complicated.
Yeah, on the topic of like opportunities, ironically, I was having a conversation with somebody today, And that there's like a big power in being able to say no to things, right? Like being able to put yourself in a position to say no. If you have to say yes to everything, you're at the mercy of whoever's asking you to do something. So yeah, I think you have to decide for yourself where your line is, and once you decide where your line is, then you can either decide to do it or not do it. And like those opportunities come, but you can also create opportunities for yourself in this day and age. So it's like a balancing act. That's how I put it.
You were asking about like how do you know when you're ready to do something or make sure you're prepared. There's no way to, you can't. You just have to like, if it comes, you gotta walk through the door and just, learn. Either you win or you learn, right? So it's a positive no matter what. But yeah, you should, if you're not gonna do something because you're scared that you're not good enough, I don't think that's a good reason. But if you're not gonna do it because you're like, damn, I'm gonna be embarrassed if this is on the internet forever, that's a good reason. Okay? I learned that the hard way, where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna say no next time. You don't wanna be viral for the wrong reasons, or you don't wanna be, it's worth just like controlling your own stuff so that unless if you're cool with a thing, you're like, great. But if it's doing something, you don't know how it's gonna be edited, it's gonna go on someone else's channel, and you don't really trust them, maybe say no, because it's
Wait,
all up to
how would you, so in acting, right, a lot of people say like, if you don't feel embarrassed, you're not doing it right. So like, how would you combat that with what you just said? You get what I'm saying? Like,
it's different. It's like, it's one thing if you're acting, because you're like doing an art form.
Yeah.
But if you're doing some BuzzFeed shit where it's like, 30 people eat jalapenos for the first time, and then you gotta throw up in a bucket, and it's actually you. That's the type of shit where you're like, no, I want this up here. It's not even about talent. It's not, you know what I mean? That's what I mean. I think for acting, there can be things that are not it, where you go like, this thing is too sexual, or like, I don't want to do this gay shit, or whatever it is that you don't want to do. There could be some reason why you don't want to, but I think it's different though than being yourself, Yeah. Is there anything else? I think that's it.
You wanted to finish?
Second, yeah.
You wanted to answer the first one?
No, I missed the second question, but he got most of it down. It's okay. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think, well, how do you know you're ready? I think one thing I learned over the years is just focusing on your art. It's like that, I don't know if it's like law of attraction, but I noticed the more you're trying to pursue something, like, I need to blow up, I need to become big, it seems like it's going away. And I used to do that, like, how do I go viral? How do I this or that? Versus now I'm just like, how do I make sure the art is good? How do I make sure what I'm providing is quality? And then I think that alone will naturally, well, I wouldn't say that alone. Obviously, there's so many different puzzles. Like, actually, having a balance of finding a way to pitch something to a big audience, like, that matters. But what I mean personally is making that your main drive. How do I just blow up and then you neglect your art, or you're like passing over like mediocre art? And I think in regards to like opportunities, it's kind of like what Leehana said, like, where's your morale ground? And honestly, when I first started content creating, I had many chances to do like rage bait or clickbait, let me mess with strangers, or this or that. It's not really hard to go viral, if I'm being really, really honest. But I personally don't do that. And, I'm not going to talk about other creators that do, but for me, I'm like, you don't know if that person is grieving. You don't know if that person is going through something, and I'm not going to make their day worse just to get a viral clip. But unfortunately, like, for example, now in this generation, when I'm trying to do YouTube, like when I'm talking to the young editors, they're like, yo, we gotta do like a rage bait or a clickbait thing on a YouTube channel. That's how you're gonna get clicks and views. And I'm like, bro, I'd rather have my respect. Like, if you see me in person, I care about my respect more than any of that, So with opportunities and all of that, I think you gotta know yourself and where you wanna stand. And like you said, are you okay with looking dumb and being viral? And then next thing you know, that's it. Because it takes a long time to build trust and a reputation and get respect, but it takes one small moment to, break that whole glass. So, yeah.
So we're wrapping up now, so I just kind of want to ask you guys individually one question. So just kind of like a short answer that sums it all up if you possibly can, because Yonas, I kind of wanted to touch on what you just talked about. I mean, I think you really do kind of break stigmas through your content, through like about mental health, and you have serious conversations. So how do you hold space for those type of conversations that maybe traditional media outlets might not give that same space to?
How do you like hold space and I'm sorry,
like you have social commentary on your pages, so it's just like you know, and in more traditional media formats, or maybe just in spaces where people want to focus on virality, like how are you making it? You know, I feel like that's one of your goals, to kind of touch on those topics regardless of the views, and so I kind of want to just know a little bit more about that.
Okay, I got you. I mean, honestly, like, so to give you a background, like my comedy, like sometimes I'll write it turning trauma into drama. You know, like a lot of my videos, people are like, oh my gosh, I went through that. And that wasn't really the intent, like when I first posted, but I realized, I'm like, oh wow, like all of diaspora kids in the Habesha community got like the same like upbringing in a way, or very similar upbringing. But creating space, I think, like if I'm gonna be very like raw and real, like there's been a lot of kids in the community that lost their lives to mental health, and people don't realize it until it's too late, and they wish they can, you know, done something about it, you know. And for me, like whenever I made a page called Habesha Venting during COVID, and there was a lot of people that, you know, well, to explain the page first and foremost, Habesha Venting was based on where a lot of the Habesha kids can vent and share their story anonymously, but they have the choice to say yes or no. And then eventually I had like, you know, therapists who were like working pro bono and doing stuff like that to help whoever wants to get connected. And there were some Habesha kids that really, it was like, yo, I've never told this story to nobody, and I feel amazing, I feel great. And yeah, it's just, I think once people stop caring about what their, not reputation, but what other people think, and like truly be themselves, it takes you a lot farther. Because at the end of the day, if you live by people's acceptance, you're gonna die by their rejection. So what's the point, you know? So I would say just learning how to be vulnerable, learning how to be yourself, and when you're vulnerable, it's easy for people to connect with you too. So, yeah.
I love that, thank you so much. Biniam, kind of going off of like caring what people think, how do you deal with like cancel culture as a comedian?
I mean, it doesn't really exist unless you're like, literally like what happened to Jimmy Kimmel, where it's like, we're taking your show off the air by using political power. If it's just comments where people are like, fuck you, or you suck, or you call yourself Habesha, or whatever it is, like, that's just your feelings. And if you can, and I've gone viral or whatever enough times and had enough things where everyone's like, you're so smart, you're great, and then it's like, you suck, you piece of shit, and it's like, I think I kind of learned that you can't believe the positive and then not believe the negative. You have to either decide that it's all fake or it's all real. So I decide it's all fake. So I don't believe anyone saying I'm a genius. I don't believe anyone saying I suck. I'm just like, oh, it's just like, whatever. It's just, yeah. I argue with people to make the algorithm go higher. You know? That's what I do. If somebody goes like, someone will be like, what the fuck is this? I'll be like, yeah, this dude sucks. Or I'll be like, because I'm just trying to get the algorithm. Like, it's all bullshit to me. So I don't take any of it seriously, but I had to go through. There was one time I made something that a bunch of people hated, and it was like on some racial stuff, and it was like people being like, this, because it was this whole thing about like, does homophobia exist in the black community at a higher level? Because that was a stereotype. It was something I made in like 2014, 2015, and there were all these like black American people that commented on it, because it went kind of viral, and they were like, this faggot ass Uncle Tom trying to shame the black community, who the fuck do you think you are? And that really fucked with me. I was like, damn, shit, not only do they think I suck, they think I'm gay too? And I was like, I didn't even know how to deal with it, but I just kind of like I kept making stuff. I think I kind of re-looked at how I was making stuff, and I think I had to go through that to be able to not care that much. But I think a lot of people, if you don't go through a thing where you have a bunch of people hating you, then I think it's gonna affect you, you know? But I think don't be scared of that. Be like, all right, go through it. It sucks, and then you'll get to the other side. You're still alive tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I feel you about pretending it's not real. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that, like, Future meme where he's like, this is an AI, like, dude's out there. Yeah, so we do have to wrap up. I guess just on some finishing notes, if you guys just want to end off, like, with something quick about how Benny, you kind of got acceptance from your parents when it comes to being in this creative field, because I remember you brought your African dad to a comedy show, so I would love to quickly hear about that as we wrap up. And then Leehana, after that, I'd love to hear about like maybe platforms that you submit yourself on, so that anyone else here who's an actor maybe submitting themselves could know that. And yeah.
Yeah, sure, I'll be brief. I did bring my dad to a comedy show. How I did it was a comedy competition. And I was competing in the competition, but I didn't tell him that I was. And I just brought my brother, and I said, hey, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And then I went to the bathroom, and then I got on stage, and I performed, and then I won the competition. So that's how I introduced myself doing stand-up to my dad. Because that is the only way you can introduce that kind of stuff to your African parents. And yeah, that's kind of how I did it. And now it's on YouTube. It's a true story. I'm not making that up. And the thing about my dad too is that he's like, now he's like one of my biggest supporters. And he's always told me something, and this is the last thing I'll say, something that I live by. It's this quote, I've since seen it on social media, is like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. So if you have that dream, you plant that tree, you get going, because there's no, tomorrow's not promised to anybody.
Yeah, for submitting yourself on acting platforms, the main ones are like Actors Access for like feature films, short films, any like real acting projects you want to get on. I would say Actors Access. Casting Networks also has them. I would say More Commercial. They have more commercials there. There's like Casting Frontier. I don't really like Casting Frontier. What else? There's Backstage. If you're just starting out, I've heard a lot of people say Backstage is really good. But before any of that, I would just say get your portfolio together. Like, if you don't have footage, it's called a reel, an acting reel. Like that, off the bat, will be the #1 thing for auditions. Having like a resume, even if you've done theater or you did your school show, 3rd grade, put something on there. Like, everyone lies on their resumes as an actor. I'm not gonna lie. When they first start out, I've seen some crazy resumes. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I personally don't, but I know a lot of actors that do. But yeah, they just want to see that they can trust you in the industry. Because a lot of times they're investing their money, their marketing, their time on you. And if you're like you don't have any marketable whatever or anything, like you're known to the industry, then they're just kind of like, okay, well, how do we know you're not going to waste our time, our money, and our efforts? So just make sure that they know you can be professional.
Okay, yeah. Did you say everyone lies? I thought you said everyone relies on the resume. I'm like, yeah. Oh, well, I mean, I guess like shows if you're a good actor, honestly, at that point. But thank you guys so much. Loved all of your answers and the conversation we had today. And honestly, I feel like we could go on and on, but that's all the time we have today. So if we could just give a round of applause to the panelists. Thank you so much.
I'll come help you.
Okay, can we give another round of applause for this film? What a powerful film. Very, very honored to be able to screen this film as its Los Angeles premiere. So as we get a chance to also hear about the making of the film and the thought process behind it, I am honored to introduce our moderator for the conversation, Elsabet Ademe. And she will be leading the conversation with the director of the film, Christopher Chambers, and one of the actresses from the film, Leehana Menelik.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming, first of all. Finally, I've been asking this question the past 4 years. I've been asking him, when are we gonna screen an alien? Finally, I got my answer. But I didn't hear any club deserve more. Thank you so much, I really appreciate that. And before I introduce the director and one of the actors, I want to say something about the film. We saw it, was it? And this film won 4 awards and 7 nominations. Screened all over, like, in America. This is the first time we screened it in LA. They won an audience award in Havana Film Festival, Audience Award in Nepal International Film Festival, Audience Award in North Dakota Human Rights Film Festival, and Silver Audience Award Twin City Film Festival, and other 7 nominations. It deserves more club. And I will introduce you, I cannot say that, Christopher Chambers. He's the producer and the director. And we just met today, Liya, and nice to meet you, and she's one of the main actresses. Okay, I have a few interesting questions. Okay, why you are interested in this story, and how did you got this? Is original story. I never heard of it before you start putting this together, and how and why?
Well, first of all, thank you for the introduction and the many rounds of applause, and thank you for the KITFO Film Festival for having us here, as well as I need to give thanks to the members of the Ethiopian community that were part of this project. Thank you to Gese at the Little Ethiopia Cultural Resource Center, as well as the Habesha Film Association, which we may talk about later, was an important part of the success of this film as it was made. So as you probably noticed, I'm not Ethiopian.
That's why I asked this question.
And so this goes back to, you know when you're about to read an article on your laptop and you say, I'll save it on my desktop and I'll look at that later. Well, so I have like 200 of those on my desktop. And at some point I saw an article in a law journal about this case. And I don't even remember when, but I was traveling with my previous film in 2016 and I was on a very long flight from Australia. And I went through all these articles I had on my desktop. I had tons of time. And I opened up the article about this case. Again, it was from a law journal. I don't even remember how I found it, how I ran into it. And as I was reading it, my jaw just sort of dropped. I said, this is the most incredible human rights story, the most incredible story of courage, of the power of the individual to speak up and speak their truth. I said, and when I got home, I landed, I said, I can't wait to see the documentary about this. There's no documentary. I said, oh, well, I can't wait to watch the movie. Of course there's a movie about this. Couldn't find the movie. And I thought, well, I'm not Ethiopian. I'm not a survivor of torture. I'm not a woman. I'm not their generation. This isn't my story to tell, but I sure hope somebody makes it. Meanwhile, another 6 months to a year went by, and I couldn't stop thinking about this story. And I thought, well, no one's making a film about this. What if I try? And that was 2017. And innocently enough, I thought, oh, I'll try to contact the women. And so I went on the internet and I started trying to figure out how to find them. And I found a phone number and I called, no one answered, no one called me back. I found an email address, I emailed, no one emailed me back. And it was a dead end. And so I said, well, what about the lawyers? The lawyers must exist, they'll answer my call. And I was right. So Miles Alexander, the elder statesman in Atlanta, he took my call. And he's a very, very successful trademark lawyer. And he said to me, he said, I'm not going to introduce you to women. He's very protective of them. He said, why don't you fly out to Atlanta, have lunch with me, and I'll consider it. And so I went there, I flew out, had lunch with this very, very charming, successful lawyer, and I went back home, and someone asked me, how did it go? I said, I have no idea. He's a charming Atlanta, successful lawyer. I have no idea what he thought of me. And he was just smiling, very charming. And then a couple of weeks later, I received a phone call. And it was a phone message, and it was Hirut. And she said, I understand you'd like to speak with me, call me Sunday at 3 p.m. I said, oh my gosh, this is the first woman, she's going to speak with me. So I called her Sunday at 3 p.m., and we spoke for 3.5 hours. And the whole time I keep trying to bring up, okay, I want to make this documentary. And every time I brought it up, she changed the subject. She'd ask me another question about my life, about what I read recently, about what I think about something in the news. 3.5 hours later, she said, thank you so much for taking time to speak with me, goodbye. No idea what just happened. I didn't get to talk about the documentary. I don't know if I'll ever talk to her again. 2 weeks later, I get another phone call. It's a message from Elizabeth. I understand you want to speak with me, call me Saturday at 1 p.m. 4 hours talking. Never can I bring up the documentary. And then finally I start to realize, as I have the third conversation with Edge, that I realize what they're doing is they're not asking me what I want to do and who I am. They're making me reveal who I am. In a very, I think, old world-wise way, they were asking me questions about everything but my intentions so that I would reveal my values, reveal who I was. And finally, in the end, that was the beginning of what became a multiple-year process of flying out to meet them, spending time with them, eating dinner with them, and building a trust to show that we have the same values. And in the end, I said, I'm asking you to do something that I cannot understand how difficult it is, which is to recount for anyone to see what happened to you, the most horrible, heartbreaking thing in your life. I said, if you trust me, then I'll make a promise to you, which is that I promise no one will see this film ever in the public until you have watched the edit and you have said to me that I have served your story. And they're very strong women, so what this meant was that editing took twice as long as it should have taken, because I went in each case and showed them the edit, and in each case, because they're very strong, they said, this is what you did wrong, you got this wrong, you got this wrong, you got this wrong, you have to change it. And so every time I said, yes, that was my promise to you, and I went back home, and I spoke to my editor, I said, we have to take the weekend off, because I don't know, we're not finished with this film. We have to fix it, because I made a promise to them that I'm going to serve their story. That's what this movie's all about. And in the end, their input is, I think, what made the film better.
Wow. That's determination, like, oh my God. Yeah, that's incredible. Like, I'm sorry, like, you really did an unspeakable. Liya, I have a quick question for you. As an actress, what did you feel when you play that character being on her shoes?
Well, to begin with, I don't think I could ever imagine what she went through, but, as an actress, I my best to put myself in their shoes and try to imagine what it would be like, even if it was ever to be possible to imagine what they went through. I was so young when we did that. I was like 19 years old when we did that. So all I remember was thinking like how excited I was to be a part of something that was telling a story that was like a part of my culture and a part of just like something that like I want everyone to know about. You know what I mean? Like stories like this, they don't get told often and right, like you said, like you going back and making sure that you got all of the information, everything that they wanted to be in the film. A lot of times you see based on the true stories and you twist it and turn it to kind of make it more, I guess, like entertaining for the audience. But this, like, I was literally talking to my friend, like I was fighting tears, like I was like, I don't want to come up here and my face be sobbing, you know, because it's just like, this was real. This really happened to people, and like even now, just thinking about it, it's just like, yeah, you did really, really good job showing that.
Wow, thank you so much, Liya. I can see the first time when I saw the rough, I couldn't finish it. Christopher know that. I barely couldn't sleep. And I still earlier, like I was having a tear, I said, no, Elsa, it's not today. And I watch it over 10 times, I still cry. I still having goosebumps when I watch it. And you are an incredible actress. For real. Like you are an amazing actress. You played real good. It doesn't, you are 19 and playing in that character in that age, you're an amazing actress.
I'd like to add that, like, you know, when you're auditioning for something like this, you don't know the full story. I mean, I knew of the red terror, you know, but it's not something that we know the details of. It's not something that we see and we're like, oh, I know exactly what that was, you know? So telling this story was like kind of a wake-up call, because you're like, wow, I did not know it was that bad. You know what I mean? Like, you hear about these things and you're like, oh, it happened, this is so sad, and you kind of move on. But like, when you really see the story, like especially when it's portrayed like how it actually happened, what actually happened when you're seeing it in like real time, I think it gives you a better understanding of like, man, I can't imagine having gone through what they went through. You know, like even filming it, like I would never imagine, you know, like what they went through like this. In my head, I'm like, yes, this is sad, this is of course, but like seeing it, I think you did, like I said, amazing at showing what they went through.
Okay, sorry. Yes, my second question is gonna be, you filmed in Ethiopia. How long were you there, and what was the experience like, and what is the challenge you face in Ethiopia? Because going from here to Ethiopia to shoot the film, it's not easy for all of us. But how was it your experience going there for first time? That's not your country. And as foreign, when you go there, and how was it, the experience, and what was the challenge?
So there are certain portions of this film. So the interviews were shot across many cities, from Los Angeles to Atlanta to Washington, D.C. to Ottawa. And all the scenes that took place in Atlanta that you saw, we initially wanted to shoot in the real courtroom in Atlanta, but it's not legal, they weren't permitted. And it's very expensive to shoot in Atlanta. So we ended up finding a courtroom here in Los Angeles where I live, and doing all of those recreations here, which involved almost 100 people. And then for everything you see that is a recreation that happened in Addis in the 1970s, thank you, that was all shot in Addis Ababa. And so it was very challenging for several reasons. So initially I was going to go out with my cinematographer, Dominic Martinez, who's very talented. But even at the first step, it was challenging, which was to get my visa. So I submitted that I was making a human rights documentary, and my visa was rejected. And I reapplied, it kept getting rejected, and finally I spoke to somebody, Ethiopian man, he said, just say historical. Just simplify what you're trying to do, leave out human rights. I did that, and it was approved. But it took so long that my cinematographer was now shooting something for Netflix, so I went alone, with no one else. And there I met and worked with Ernest Waldiamrak, who's a local filmmaker and a producer and a very wise man. His family lived through the Red Terror. And he said that he would help me. And thank God, because there's no way I could possibly have been able to shoot anything there without help navigating, because the bureaucracy is like world class. It's an incredible bureaucracy. You really have to know people who understand it, and as a Ferengi, an outsider like me, there's no chance to navigate, to understand the nuance of what, and so my challenge was to say, how can we make this as authentic as possible? And I took the interviews and I took everything the women told me, and Ernest helped me to find the actual building, which were their former homes. So when you see, not all of them, but in many cases their former childhood home. So in the scene where you see Elizabeth's at her home and she runs out the hallway to a school, that is actually her former home. There's another family living there, and that is actually a school that was the school she ran to behind her house that is still there, but it's abandoned. And likewise, we found the actual Kabeli building using, again, what they told me. They said, okay, if you go outside my gate and go here, that's where it's located. So I went there, and I negotiated with the government to get their permission, and they gave me permission. I was shocked. So I walked through, and because the women had described everything to me, they described the room they were held in, the room they were interrogated in, and they told me there was a crack in the floor about this big that they never forgot. And I was walking through the rooms, and I found the crack was still there. And I said, we're going to film, if the government gives us permission, I'm going to film their interrogation scenes in this room to give it as much realism as possible. So when you see these scenes of them walking down the hallway before they're being interrogated, that's the actual real hallway. And when you see them held in the room in the basement, that's the actual room. It was filled with documents now, and we had them all removed so that it was cleaned out. And in the ceiling, there was still pieces of newspaper stuck from the era of the Red Terror that was still stuck to the ceiling. So it was a very emotional experience to be in these women's homes who have, at that point, developed such a relationship and a caring for them, and to be in the room where they actually were interrogated. And my hope is that somehow that gives it a deeper feeling of authenticity for the audience.
Sorry. That's quite challenging too. It's not only finding the part like the woman is finding it was a challenging, but it's challenging to shoot in Ethiopia too.
Because I went alone, we ended up doing a whole new casting, and we did casting from Addis Ababa University, and all the students studying drama. So all the actors there are from Addis Ababa University, unless they're older, and all of our crew everybody was from Addis Ababa. And the thing that really surprised me was all the equipment we got was from Addis Ababa, all the crew, all the cast. And every day we would eat lunch, and everyone would sit around and eat lunch together. And every day our crew and our cast were so joyful at making a movie. Even though the way we make movies in America, the way I was doing it, very different from what they're used to. It's a different process. But their joy was something I forgot, because this project was so difficult to make. I forgot about the joy of making a film, of creation, even something this serious and with this much darkness. But the joy of trying to make something and trying to do your best, they kind of woke me back up. So like, don't just try to do this well, but also try to do it with some sort of joy in the process in what you're doing. So it was a really beautiful experience.
Wow. I'm still speechless, but let me continue my question because I'm here for that reason. Liya, I have a question for you. My speaker is still working, but I can use my voice. After you shot the film, you've been like a part of it, the film, did you ever heard from your family, from your friend, cousins, they've been through on that situation? Did you ever meet anyone?
That's actually funny you just mentioned that right now. One of my friends, she's here right now, and she just told me that I think her grandfather, or was it her great-grandfather, I think she said grandfather, was actually in the Red Terror. Like he was alive during that time. He lived in Ethiopia. So like, just right now, just hearing that, like, made me like, wow. Because like, we don't know. I mean, of course we know about it, but we wouldn't have like a good depiction of like what actually happened to people, how they were terrorized like this. Like, you know, you don't really see things until someone shows you. So, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say I know too many people that were in that period, but I can definitely say I have friends and family who reached out to me and said, oh, like this, my family, you know, my grandparents went through this, like like my mom would always call me and tell me when one of my cousins or a family friend had seen the documentary. I wasn't in the country at the time when you guys were doing the tour. I was actually in Addis, but yeah, like my mom would always call me and tell me, oh, your cousins, they went to Atlanta, they saw it, they told me how great it was, they cried, they watched it, and like, I was always hear about it, but I guess it's just hearing, like, it's just different, like seeing even one of my friends being affected by it as well. So, yeah, like it's like you said in the documentary, it's not just one person that was affected. It was a lot of people that were affected.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a lot of people, as the film said, it's a lot of people's been affected. We have been encounter a lot of people. It's people telling me like, oh yeah, my parents, my mom, my dad went through, and even firsthand, people come tell me I was one of the victims. Another question for Christopher. It's crazy asking this question for you, but I have to ask for the people to know. What section were you filming in LA? Like, which section are you filming in LA? And then, what's the challenge?
Yes, so the key sequences we filmed were the Atlanta sequences, right? And that involved what I thought was part of the heart of the story, which is the trial, and the fact that what really happened in the trial in real life was that the Ethiopian community came to attend the trial and they sat behind the women. And that was a wordless, powerful symbol to say they are telling the truth. And I thought that was such an important moment. And myself, being an outsider from the culture, I thought there's no way I could possibly be able to bring in a cast to be in the trial that represents all the generations. And that's when we got connected. So I had reached out to Nwokeabia at the Little Ethiopia Cultural Resource Center, and I said, I need help. I need a casting director. This scene has to be authentic. If it's not authentic, the whole thing's going to be like garbage. It's going to feel fake. It's a true moment, so we cannot screw it up. And she said, I know just the person to speak with. And I connected with you, and you said, I'm on board. No problem. I'm going to take care of it. And I thought, okay. And we went, we talked through everything. We said, I understand. No problem. We got it. And the day of this, the biggest day of filming, so for a small documentary, low-budget documentary, this was the biggest moment for everything. The most amount of planning, the most amount of money, very complicated. A lot going on. And that morning, I remember, you were there, and as the call time hit, all of a sudden, through the door, came 50 members of the Ethiopian community of every generation. From the 70-year-olds, and they all, and I said they have to come like they're ready for court. And showing that they're, with authenticity, how they would normally dress if they're going to court. Because I know they would look magnificent, you know, they'd be proud. And then when they came to that door, that's exactly what it was. These women and men came in, and they were proud. You could tell they're beautiful and proud of their culture and who they are. And that, to me, I hope people feel that scene feels authentic. And it was something that would be impossible without your help. Impossible. So I'm very much appreciative, because to me I feel like that scene is the heart. Even though it's a subtle moment, I feel like because it was real, and that's really what happened, and that was the collective statement to say these women are telling the truth, and we are showing through our actions. So I'm very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I want to say thank you. I know few the cast members are here. Thank you everyone for being for part of it. As Christopher said, without you, wouldn't be authentic. So you have to make a play for yourself too. And Liya, I'm coming to you. We are talking about the court. So I'm gonna take you back to the court scene. And I wish I was there, but I wasn't. I just left earlier. What did you feel standing as an actress, I'm asking you? Like standing behind all the cast, the background actress in the back, and standing in front of Cabeza. I mean, I see you are going a lot of emotional moments. I'm asking you as an actress, that helps you the actor too.
Honestly, for me, like I said, I tend to put myself in as much as I possibly can. Like try to picture myself as in the moment. So like, I remember going like and on the, what is it called? To testify on stand, yes. And I remember there were moments where he was like persecuting us, and that part made me mad, like really mad. You know, I almost felt like the anger that Hirut was feeling, or what I think she would be feeling. And then I remember when it was like my turn and they were like, now you get to speak. I don't know, it was slowed down a little bit, but I was just like ready to be like, I know he wasn't actually the guy that did it, he's just an actor. But I was so mad at him, I was like, that guy, like, get him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I almost wanted to like have him sent to jail. Like, he's just an actor. But like, you know, he depicted his character so well, like just the look on his face, and like you could just see the disgust in his face, and like it's just great actors, honestly, but they did a really good job of telling the story, and I felt it too. I remember I didn't even need like fake tears or anything. I was ready to go on set. I said I'm ready. Like I feel the anger. I feel like I was just so happy to be a part of telling that this is when they get their justice. You know what I mean? This is when they're sitting tall, like, you're not getting away this time. So for me, I feel like, if anything, that was probably the best part of the whole filming production part, yeah.
Thank you so much. And I have one last question for each one of you. And Christopher, you have showed this film all across the United States. Do you have any challenge or memorable screening? Like you have like any memorable? And the other one, what kind of advice you give the fellow filmmakers?
Okay. So we have screened it all across America, and we hope in winter later this year to come out in a theater in LA, and in October we'll be showing in Luxembourg of all places, which I've never been to, but and I won't be there. But if anybody's going to be in Luxembourg, you can see it one more time. The most intimidating screening was in Florida. We did a film festival that was in a community that was very wealthy and very conservative and very white. And I knew nobody there. I said, okay, so I have no friends here, and they're all white and they're all conservative. Okay, this is going to be the ultimate test. So I sat in the back, which is normally what I do, and I watched and I waited. And as soon people would walk out, like, oh, what is this, and nobody moved. And then when the movie ended, normally some people go to the restroom before the Q&A, nobody moved. And all of a sudden a woman raised her hand in the Q&A, and her voice was shaking, and she said to me, I just realized that when I go to a local store and there's a person there from another country, or my taxi driver is speaking with an accent, that they had a life and a home, and something drove them from their home, forced them away from their home. And she said, I never thought about that. I never considered that. And I could feel this collective wave, and all these people started making noises in agreement, that they had this sort of more racist, conservative point of view of like, oh, about immigrants. And it never occurred to them that these are human beings with stories driven from their homes that deserve empathy, that are humans like that they have something in common with. And the other thing that happened was afterwards a woman, who was a white woman, came up to me crying and squeezed my hand, and she told me she was a survivor of abuse, not of torture, of abuse. And she squeezed my hand crying, and she said, if I can see how these women can keep on living with what they went through, then I can keep on going with my life. So in the end, what I was most afraid of ended up being one of the most powerful screenings I've ever experienced.
Okay, last one is what kind of advice you give to the fellow filmmakers?
I think my advice is kind of a little bit simple for anybody who's aspiring to act or to be a filmmaker, to make a film, which is do it. Like, go out and do it. I know so many people, I went to film school, I know people that went to film school with me years ago and over decades, they're still waiting for the right project and the right amount of money, and they've never done anything. And they're always waiting, or they feel they need to wait in line. And what I think is important is if you have an idea, don't make it a $200 million idea. Find an idea, perhaps less epic than this. This is quite a complex film to make. But tell a story and just do it and say, you know what, 2 months from now we're starting production, we're going to make a short film about this story, and we're going to use my uncle's apartment, and we're going to use my aunt's restaurant, and that's it. And we're going to shoot down the street from me. And figure it out. And don't talk about it, don't wait, do it. And you'll learn by doing, and you'll learn if you want to do it, because a lot of people think they want to do it until they do it. And then the stress hits, and the pressure hits, and they don't like it. Same with being an actor. Everyone thinks they want to be an actor. I don't want to be an actor. Because if you put a camera on me and say, now I want to start having a real emotion, I'd say, how? I'd start sweating, and I couldn't do it, and I don't want to do it. But I think a lot of people, they need to just if you want to be an actor, make short films with your friends, get in front of the camera, edit it, put it in front of people, and learn the craft. In my opinion, learn by doing, and find out if you like it. You like it, and you're very good at it. Because I still remember that day, because I had read all the transcripts of the trial, so I was explaining to everyone like kind of what we were doing, and there's improvisations, because you don't hear their voice, but they're actually speaking. So we were improvising these scenes based on prompts that I knew happened in the real trial. And I remember when it was your moment, we were shooting a close-up, and this is when she had to cry. And I remember you just looked kind of normal, and you're like, no, I'm ready. I'm like, okay, do you want a moment? Like, no. I remember that so well. She said, no. Camera rolled, and she just was there from 0 to 100 like that. And that's, I think, just talent and craft.
Thank you so much, Christopher. And Leah, I have one last question for you. What kind of advice are you giving the fellow actor and actress? Sorry.
Honestly, just take control of your own career. If you believe you can do it, then you can. If you believe you can't do it, then you can't. Whatever you believe you can or can't do is what's gonna happen. So if you believe you can do something, go out, find, we live in a generation where there's Google, there's ChatGPT, there's whatever. Just like he said, go out and do everything you possibly can to make that dream happen. If you want it bad enough, you'll go out and get it. And honestly, with how many opportunities there are, you don't have to start at the top. You can start with whatever. You can start with a camera and film your own short film and post it on YouTube, one of the web series I work for now, they literally started that way, and now they're top 2 content creators on Forbes. So it literally just starts with an idea and then executing it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Christopher and Leah. We really appreciate for your time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for audience. Thank you for coming. If anyone has a question.
Have the women been able to experience a public screening? And if yes, what was the reaction?
The question was, have the women attended a public screening? What was their reaction?
If they did.
Yes. So that's a very interesting question. So a while ago, when we were at a film festival, BBC found out about this project. They called me up and they said, we'd like to interview you and Nwokeabia. And so I did what I always do with women, which is they're always invited and they're never obligated. That's our rule. Always invited. Anything you want, never obligated. And I called her up, I said, same thing, it's BBC, they want to interview you, they want to interview me. What would you like to do? And she said something that really shook me. She said, I don't have any interest in doing the interview. The documentary is my last statement. And I was really stunned because it was, I'm glad I never thought that that could possibly be the situation when I was filming it. But I also, felt very rewarding, felt like we did something right. But no, so every screening, they're always invited, and to date, though they've seen the film, multiple cuts of it, they have never attended any of them, and they are always invited to every Q&A if they want to, and I completely understand why, if they would not want to. But so far, for all the screenings, they have opted to not go to the screenings.
How did you pick the character for Calvesa?
The actor?
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we pick the actor for Calvesa? So he's actually bald and he's wearing a wig. Elsabet Ademe is his name, and he's a very nice guy. In real life, he's a very nice person. So we ran auditions, pretty much like any film you would, or indie film you would do in Los Angeles, where through Film Independent, which is an organization here, they have affordable casting rooms. That's where we met, and casting offices. And so we ran posts. You do posts in different websites for actors. And initially, we were posting only. I said only Ethiopian. Have to be Ethiopian, or maybe Eritrean, but Ethiopian if you have a show. And nobody showed up. Like one person showed up, which makes sense. There's not a lot of gentlemen of that age who are like, from Ethiopia and actors here in English. So, though in the end we continued and we widened the net after 3 weeks. We had to increase the scope. And then when he came in, I just thought he had such an interesting face. And so, and he kind of, not exactly looks like him, but I felt like he could evoke that feeling of him. And he had this ability to make me, when he did his audition, I really felt uncomfortable. And he's a guy, and he's lived through some stuff. He's a Vietnam veteran and stuff like that. He's lived through violence. So he has something to tap into. I never asked him what, but he has something that he tapped into. And so he had the ability, and he was open and had the ability to also improvise, which was part of how we wanted to try to get good performances, right? Because it's very rare in a documentary where you see people's faces like this. So we said, if we're going to do it, they have to really act and they have to really deliver it. And so part of that was that he had to be able to, and I say, okay, now mock them, like make fun of them, belittle them, tell them they're liars. Because in the real transcripts, that's what Calvesa did. He was constantly trying to get them to trip up and to contradict themselves. And you could see, he did reveal his technique. When you're reading it, you could see a confident man who thought this playbook would work again, but it didn't work on the women.
Can I pick up on that question about casting, and this is also for you too, Elsa? I don't know if you're familiar, this actor Daniel Day Kim was talking about like overcorrection of ethnic-specific casting. And I was curious about that as I was watching the present day women. And yeah, if you could just speak to that and your thoughts, especially because this is such a culturally specific story. Either of you, if you could speak to that.
Yes, so it's so the question was about, there's a comment recently by an actor, Asian American actor, who said that that he feels that there's a overcorrecting now, with people trying to do authenticity, and where he was basically no longer getting roles that were for like an Asian character because he wasn't the exact right ethnicity of Asian. Is that basically?
Yeah, and then also because it tends to be white creators, but white writers and producers, and they feel like they have to make it very specific for that story, right? But he's saying if you're a white writer or creator, then you can kind of, and if it's not a culturally specific story, you can cast a bit wider. But because this is a culturally specific story, I was just curious what your thoughts were.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely felt an obligation to go as far as we could to, the first rule was authenticity. And if it's not authentic, it's not going to be good. And then we ran up against reality, which is after 3 weeks of auditions, there were very few actresses that had come through who were Ethiopian and also they had to be talented actresses. So that's like a very important Venn diagram. And then third, they had to plausibly resemble one of the woman that they're going to represent so that the audience can track across 2 generations. There's a lot, because if we had, sometimes we did have an experience where we had 2 good actresses come in, but unfortunately they looked so much alike that it wouldn't help us with the 3 different roles for 3 very distinct individuals. So, but I totally understand the feeling of the obligation, the moral obligation to say, I want to do this with authenticity. So I don't know what the answer is. I think we're in a period where most of us don't know what the answer is. Everything is changing, and we're trying to live our lives and be decent human beings. At the same time, our culture continues to evolve from being more and more, considering of other cultures and then push back. And I think there's an arc toward a more just country over time. But I think it's a personal choice. But there is a mix, I have to say, between practicality and idealism. And even though we had so much freedom because this is so low budget, in the end I still cast Calvesa, for example, he's African American. So, because in the end, after 3 weeks, I didn't have an actor from the Ethiopian community. And we had to cast from Los Angeles. There's no money to fly people in, from DC or Atlanta or from Ethiopia.
I had a question really quick.
A statement first and then a question. Number one, a lot of us are first generation of parents that did go through that. They did not necessarily speak about it. However, we kind of knew the lineage of where we come from and how we all were to come here. So I just want to say thank you for putting the story together. The second thing is when you went from that concept and idea on that flight, reading through all the transcripts and kind of getting an idea of what that story was really about. Personally to you, what are some fears maybe that you had coming into the story, because it is very culturally specific? And what are some things that you learned, given that your background and where you come from is very different from what the women that did come from the story of Ethiopia? What are some things that you learned from culturally from where, Ethiopia and Eritrea and the whole East African community, and how that possibly translated to the final film that we see on the screen?
Did everybody hear a question? Yeah. Okay. So I learned a lot. One thing really big that I learned was how much more difficult what I wanted to pull off was, specifically because of what you're talking about with the specifics of Ethiopian culture. And what I didn't know then, but I know very well, and I've run into this many times, is the concept of, talk about it because it's therapeutic. Talk about something painful because it's therapeutic is not common for this, especially for this generation, the women's generation. And I've run into this many times with children of survivors of the Red Terror, and later at screenings I've met survivors of the Red Terror who come up to me and told me that they were tortured, told me what happened to them, and then told me they haven't told their own children yet. And they said, well, I want them to see this film so I can explain. But basically, I had no idea what I was walking into, and I was told that a lot. People were like, you have no idea. I was going off to Addis, I'm like, I'm going to shoot this thing, I'm going to hire all our cast. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea how hard this is. But I think the most, the many beautiful things about Ethiopian culture and Ethiopian history that I very much admire and I love, and a great warmth, and a dignity, and an intellect. But I had no idea I was walking into something that was doubly more, 10 times more difficult, because we encountered that with the interviews, which is that after spending months developing this project and then interviewing the women multiple times, so I would interview them and then go home and then come back when they're available and say, okay, I'm ready to go to the next part of my life. We would go chronologically. And so I knew that if we got to when we reached the day, when it was the day to talk about their arrest, their interrogation, the most heartbreaking thing that ever happened in their life, if they changed their mind and didn't tell me what happened, there's no documentary. It's done. And I didn't know until I got involved that how intimidating times 100 it would be for a woman who comes from a culture, speaking to an outsider no less, but comes from a culture where they literally had not spoken to their own sister about it, or their own mother about it, or their own siblings about it. So I was asking them to say, for the first time ever, tell me, a stranger, what you could never tell to your own sister. So that was something I really didn't even understand or grasp because I didn't know enough about Ethiopian culture when I first started the project. And now looking back, it makes me very grateful, again times 1,000, that given all that weight on the women and all that history of never speaking about it, that they took the courage to say, I'm going to not just tell me, but tell this to any stranger who wants to watch it later. And so to me that took an incredible amount of courage that I now appreciate on a deeper level than I could have before I started this project.
Thank you.
I have a question. It's about a casting about Ilvesa. I lived in Ethiopia during the Red Terror, and I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but he had a striking resemblance to Mengistu Haile Mariam. And while watching it, it was poetic. It was like Mengistu was on trial.
That's very, very interesting. I can't see you, but I'd be very interested to hear about your experiences afterwards. I would say that's subliminal. Like I honestly hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it just now, to be honest. But I think that's a really interesting parallel.
How many survivors are there from that time period?
Oh, I mean, millions. I mean, the question is how many survivors from that period. And I'm not a historian, but I probably know more than some white guys about the Red Terror. But it was, again, a revolution went over the whole country. And then there were certain regions where there was more violence of different kinds. But I think it's fair to say the entire generation was affected. And this is a very large country. I think somebody was raising their hands. Yes?
I was going to ask, did you get a chance when you were in Ethiopia of their family member or other family they have been in that situation?
Was the question, did I get a chance to speak to other family members?
Yeah, that were a part of that situation, or other family members that they went through this situation.
I'm sorry.
That went through this situation. Have you had a chance to talk to other family members that also went through this?
Yes, I don't want to say which woman did it because it's their own private experience, but yes, I have met siblings of multiple of the women, and we did one experience in Addis and in America, and when I met a sibling in Addis, we didn't really talk about it. She wasn't interested in talking to me about that. I wasn't interviewing her, I met her because I was there, and she was curious, I think, to see who this person is who's sniffing into this. So we had coffee, and then she, at a cafe, and then a couple of days later she invited me over to meet her husband and have have Ethiopian coffee with her at home, and she's a very, very, very strong woman, but she didn't talk to me about that. That wasn't what she was interested in talking about. But I did have another experience where we showed the film with another sibling, and the sibling said at the end that she didn't know that had happened. So that was done with the woman's permission, and so I believe that, and I hope that was cathartic and somehow helpful for them, because I think it's true in my observation, again, traveling and going to different communities where I've met many people from different Ethiopian communities, that there is very much, in some families, this unspoken weight, where the children know, but they don't know, but they know.
One last question, and then we have to wrap up.
Can you talk a little bit about the funding for a project like this, and then as well as how the business model for handling the profits, as well as your
What's left? I couldn't.
So she wanted to talk about the funding to put a project like this together, the business model, and then royalties post-production, if there is any way that comes in.
Yes. So part of the agreement I made with the women, which I don't think they cared about, but I thought it was the right thing, was to say that a certain percentage of all profits, we don't call it royalties, but all profit, will go to them, or revenue from, it's broken up in different ways because that's how a contract's broken up, but basically a percentage goes to them equally with the agreement that they can do whatever they want with it. So as you saw with Kelbessa's money, they didn't want it, they donated it to the ACLU. And so we put a clause in there that they can do whatever they want with it, and they have actually received money already, and so if they want to use it, they can use it. If they want to donate it, they can donate it. It's up to them. But because of what I knew they did in the trial, we added in a clause that they don't have to take it if they don't want it. Because normally, like, if you give money to somebody, it has to be linked to their tax ID, etc. And then fundraising is, unfortunately, just the hard way. No, I spent about 200 hours applying to grants, $0. And I should have just been washing cars, and I could have raised more money that way, honestly. So grants may work for someone else, but it was a waste of my time. And basically, so I'd made another film before this, a drama, which sold to Netflix and was profitable. And from that, I had some investors, and other people had seen that film, and they liked the values of it, like the filmmaking, and they had said to me, this happens to you when you have films on film festivals, someone will come up to you and say, hey, call me when you're making your next film. And so 99% of those people are fake, and they're totally wasting your time, they're not interested. And some of them are very wealthy, and they're completely wasting your time. I'm talking from personal experience. And then you find out that you have friends who get involved. And they say, look, I'm going to go to my network, and I'm going to see if someone in my network might want to support this. And I found this person who's connected this person, and now some money came in. Or a friend who says, you know what, you're out of money again. I'm going to put money into your film to help you because I believe in what you're trying to do. So it really is that basic. It's a bit like Spike Lee when he made his first movie. He was selling socks out of the back of his truck. There's no secret to it. It's just you keep trying to figure it out. And honestly, whenever we ran out of money, I was the backstop. So at a certain point, I had to put $30,000 in the film of my own money to keep it going because we ran out of money again. And somebody who said they were going to invest didn't. But we had to pay the editor, we had to pay this person, and I didn't want them to go unpaid. So it's very difficult making these kinds of films, I have to say. Although it is the most meaningful project I've ever worked on in my entire life. So, and business model, I think I could go on about this for a long time. So when you create an investor deck for raising money, you put in all these projections, which are based on certain comparables. And that's essentially the business plan. But the problem with that is that 90-something% of films that are made, can you imagine how many films are made every year and how many films you never see? So films are literally and technically a high-risk investment. So I would say that business plan on that is like, it's fine to do it, but in the end you find out what happens with the film as you go along, and you have certain opportunities based on film festivals or you don't. So my first film went to LA Film Festival. It got reviewed by the Hollywood Reporter, and won several awards, and that allowed us to then get it to Netflix, and Netflix bought it, and it happened to be bought for more than the budget. This film is a different journey, and we're going to be releasing it on digital later this year, in winter, I think. I don't know which platforms yet, but we're going to do multiple platforms. So that's a mixture of AVOD, which is ad-supported VOD, and TVOD, which is people renting it. And we hope to do some screenings along the way. Like, if we can get funding for it, we'll do a screening here, a screening in a movie theater, maybe Atlanta, Washington, D.C., perhaps Dallas, perhaps Seattle. But again, like, it all depends on whether or not we can get enough people interested to sell tickets. Because otherwise you can't. It's very expensive to try to launch a theatrical tour. But yes, so every film is really different, but there's many different ways. It's kind of the Wild West of distribution right now because of the way the internet is evolving and falling apart and coming back together. So there are a lot of opportunities if one knows, is filming scrappy or very good at promotion, which is a different skill than telling a story, of course.
We're going to have to wrap the Q&As here, but thank you so much. Thank you for questions, and thank you for the responses and taking the time to do this and share some insight into the making of the film. It was really great to hear. So please give a round of applause.
And to the KITFO Film Festival, I'm gonna say goodnight.
Thank you, everyone. So I want to thank everybody for coming out today to the second day of the KITFO Film Festival. We'll be back here tomorrow, starting at 11 a.m. for more films and panels and Q&As. We hope to see you tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone.